Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, your channel on YouTube for all things PSG in English. Please subscribe. Today, let's go back to the games that we played yesterday in Brest, won 3-0. And I think, a very like in control, dominant victory, no drama, no injuries, no doubts at any point in the game. And yet, like, there's a few things which I think were quite interesting. And I think, like, for the most part, I will say this was kind of the usual, like, a bit sleepy Saturday afternoon Ligue game that sadly we've seen quite a few times. But yeah, at the same time, I think there's a few things to pick out. And so what I'll do is that I'm going to start by talking a little bit about our line of offense. And for me, it's one of the things that really stood out in this game is that, obviously we've got some of our starting players who are coming back from injury. You see Kvara and Kvara starting the game, but then Doue and Dembele coming in to finish it. But more than anything, what really struck me is the tactical shape that we played, which wasn't something really like completely new for PSG, but we tend to think of PSG as like a team organized in a 4-3-3. And the reality is that I think for like the vast majority of this game, we were playing in a sort of like 3-2-5, very aggressive, pushing a lot of people up front, and then like having them engage in a sort of like dance of movement as well. And honestly, like, I finished watching the game and I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll need to rewatch this one or two times to really understand like all of the moving elements, because I think, yeah, like the tactical shape is one thing, and that thing like was pretty clear to me from the get-go. But then for like the 5 players up front, which were like typically the 3 attackers. So if I think of the starting 11, Barcola, Kvara, Mayulu, plus Lee, plus Hakimi. And the way they move, they switch positions, they go deep versus they drop back down, and it's a constant dance of trying to like move in and out and creating space and creating movement. And it's very intricate, and at the same time like clearly very well defined and well understood by the players, because you never see like 2 players making the same run or going into the same area. You don't see player like sending a pass to nowhere. So I think like there's a lot to look at, and I think like looking at the first half, the players that really impressed me in this context was Kvaratskhelia, because I thought like he did a lot of movement and he took on this role that then you see Dembele and to a lesser extent Doue play in the second half, which is that attacker that tends to drop back down to organize the game from on deep. And you have in the first half, like between him and Lee or Mayulu, 2 attackers who drop back down a little as like attacking midfielder, and with Vitinha 1 step behind them, kind of organize the game. And Barcola and Kvara, like I thought it was super interesting because he started the game on the right, which we know he doesn't like, but he had Hakimi who was playing very, very far up and in that same kind of area, and so it really gave him a lot of freedom to drop back down, to move towards the middle. I've even seen him like go all the way to almost like a right back position at some point. And he organizes the game. He makes the run as well. He's running at the defense from a deeper position. And yeah, ultimately, like I think it very much contributes to the first goal, because if you look at the first goal, it's a wonderful, beautiful pass from Vitinha over the Brest defense to Hakimi, who's right at the back, in the back of the defenders. And I think the defenders, they get caught because Kvara, who's supposed to be in this zone, he keeps dropping back, and so they don't know if they should go with him, and they kind of forget that they've got Hakimi who's sitting on their shoulder, ready to go on deep. And typically when that happens, just like they realize it's too late already. Vitinha has seen the opportunity, he's made the perfect pass, which is just beautiful in its own right, and then we score a goal like this. And I do think, yes, that's that dance of movement between Hakimi, who's supposed to be a defender, and he's supposed to be low on the pitch, but he's actually like sitting behind the defenders of Brest, versus Kvara, who's supposed to be in this position up front, but he's actually dropping on deep to organize the game and create some space for ourselves. And this kind of movement, for this first goal, you can definitely see it between Kvara and Hakimi, but you can also see it sometimes on the other side between Barcola and Lee. You can see Mayulu as well, sometimes dropping in deep, and you can also see it in the second half. And it's something that I thought was brilliantly executed. And then the beauty of it is that the system is magnified by the players that we have. In this case, the pass by Vitinha, the finishing by Hakimi is just first rate. We're 1-0 up. And then the second goal, it's very similar. It's Kvara, actually, in this case, is been moved to the left because middle of the first half, they switched the roles between Barcola and Kvara. So Kvara moves to the left and Barcola moves to the right. And Kvara gets a ball in deep behind defensive line, manages to control, dribbles past, manages to take a shot. The ball comes back to him, and then they play a sort of 1-2 with Hakimi. Hakimi gets the ball back and then scores. But the point here is that the system shows that like Kvara is making that perfectly timed run in deep, and like the pass arrives exactly in the right way, in the right timing. That system, that stuff that's prepared in advance. And then it's magnified with the individual talent of Kvara, who then can move past and take on and dribble past one of the Brest defender, can get the ball back in the area, and now like all of a sudden there's a lot of density and players around, but they still manage to find this beautiful 1-2 between Kvara and Hakimi to set up Hakimi with a shooting position that he doesn't miss from. And so we're 2-0 up, 2 goals from Hakimi. And yeah, ultimately, like I do think like it's wonderful because we had seen this sort of movement and tactical commitment in Champions League game, but sometimes we hadn't seen as much in Ligue 1 game. And if I think of, the games that we drew against Strasbourg or against Lille, but even before that, like, the games that we played against weaker team, like, no offense, like Lens in Parc des Princes, like Auxerre, like Angers, like, like even Nantes, the first game, a lot of times we got the wins in those games, but we didn't really commit enough to like make it more decisive and like look more in control. And so I thought it was great to see. We're 2-0 up at halftime, and there's really like no doubt that we're in control of the game. We've got, I think, 75% possession. Brest, they've got, I don't know, like lose opportunities in counter-attacks, but really very little, and we shut them down quite well. And so yeah, here it is. And then, in the second half, that tactical stance tends to look a little bit different because the second half, it's more about getting our old injured player back to fitness. So you see Dembele come on the pitch on the 60th minute. You see Doue come on the pitch like just after that. You see Ramos get a few minutes, even if like we didn't really see any of it. You see Njontu again. And so at this point, it's less about like the tactical shape and so on, but it's about like getting players back to fitness and trying a few things. And like a few things that I thought were very noteworthy in this second half, and that I think are, Luis Enrique trying different things. Doue comes on, and he comes on the left side of offense. When Barcola is still on the pitch and plays on the right side. Typically, you would imagine it'd be the other way around. It'd be Barcola on the left, Doue on the right. But no, in this case, Doue on the left, Barcola on the right. And then you see when Njontu comes on the pitch, he takes this sort of left winger position, very, very close to the touchline. And then Doue has this sort of roaming number 10/attacker position with complete freedom to move from the right to the left. And, that line of 5 in offense looks like Engine to really far to the left, Hakimi very far to the right, Ramos somewhere in the middle, and then Doue and Dembele in the half spaces with a lot of freedom to move in and out, deep and back, and really create stuff. And ultimately, the last 10-15 minutes of the game, we're completely dominating and creating a lot of chances because Brest is tired, obviously, at the end of the game, but also our players are just all over the place and it's impossible to keep track of. And so I get back to what I was saying at the beginning. It's it might not be a Champions League final or anything, but it's really the kind of game where there's the specific places where I might have to go back and just almost do a image by image to keep track of the movements and who's doing what and how it's all organized, because it's quite impressive. And so we score the third game by Doue. Doue has 2 opportunities before that and put them on the post. And Dembele also, you can see he's trying to get a good feel for his game. He's trying a few shots which aren't that great, but he's got a couple of through passes which are beautiful. And my God, when those guys are going to be back to full form, my, there's talent there. So anyways, that was for the offense. I went quite in depth because there's a lot of things. Then a bit more, more quickly talking about the defense. Brest obviously didn't create a lot of things, but I think overall, our defense was mostly in control. We did manage to typically get the ball back very quickly. Brest had a couple of opportunities to counter. There's one that comes back to mind by Ajorc that Zabarnyi really takes on. There's a shot by Mbop towards the end that Chevalier saves. We do consider a penalty from Lee in the second half that they completely miss. But apart from this, I thought we were mostly in control. I thought Ajorc was a difficult forward to mark in the French league because he is very big, very physical, and it's not the standard issue, fast-paced Ligue 1 forward. I thought Pacho was, not struggling, but not as dominant as he used to in the beginning. And then Zabarnyi got on his case, and I think mostly Zabarnyi did a really good job at it and really controlled him. And then Chevalier on the 1-2 things he had to do, I thought was quite clean. There's a couple of times where, his decision making is not completely faultless, but on balance, a pretty good game for him. And I think, it's nice. Hopefully it's a confidence booster for Chevalier, for Zabarnyi, who's bouncing back after a horrible Leverkusen game. Pacho, he had an okay game, nothing much. And then Hernandez on the left, I thought did well as well, nothing really too specific to note. The last thing though, so like I said, I think most of the time we played our line of 3 in defense, which really didn't work for us in Marseille, which really didn't work for us in Lille, and I think this is the first time where it's actually working for us. And I think it's funny because people I saw a few articles who were saying how strange that Marquinhos, when Marquinhos comes on the pitch, he moves to the left of the defense. And it doesn't. It's a line of 3, so he's taking the middle from Pacho. And I think that actually it puts our defense in a better place because then you've got a ball-playing defender in the middle that Zabarnyi and Hernandez can rely on, and who can very easily link up with Vitinha in front of him and Chevalier behind, who can also quite confidently pass the ball. And so in terms of getting the ball back from defense, I think that made a lot more sense. I wouldn't be surprised at some point in the near future if we see a line of 3 defenders with Pacho, Marquinhos, Zabarnyi. And I think when that happens, it's going to be fun because it means in the PSG 4-3-3. Oh, that's strange. Okay, cool. Confettis. It's a PSG 4-3-3. like it's gonna show Pacho playing as a left back, and I think like commenters are gonna go over themselves, like, oh, what's going on with this, and what's Luis Enrique doing, and so on. So we'll have to see how that keeps evolving, but I thought that was an interesting use of the three at the back in this game. Finally, very quickly, tops and flops. Top, Hakimi, obviously 2 goals, really strong game, contributed a lot offensively, tracked back a couple of times with a lot of strains defensively as well. So that was pretty great to see. Apart from that, Vitinha really dominated the midfield. It's funny because Brest didn't make that much effort to close him down. And I think, Vitinha, if you give him time and space, yeah, even if you're playing a low block and trying to like sit deep, he's gonna find passes, and that first goal is exactly that. Like, you cannot give him space and time. And then beyond that, yeah, I talked about Kvara, who I thought was interesting. Barcola was pretty average, if I'm honest. So was Lee. Warren Zaire Emery, in line with his previous games, I thought was really, really interesting. Did a lot of work to compensate the movements of his partners, to be that first line of defense when we lose the ball and get the ball back. And then he's got an assist for the third goal, so really good game from him. And so yeah, so it was great. And then in terms of flops, who do I have? No one really. Like, I mean, Ramos had only 10 minutes and we didn't see any of it. So like, it'd be a bit rough maybe to call it a flop. So yeah, no one really like completely stands out for me. And I think overall, like I said at the beginning, was a game we just controlled. So 3-0, clean, dominant, all we wanted. And beyond that, we're back on top of Ligue 1 since Marseille lost in Lens as well. So like I told you, this could be a game that we look back as one of the turning points of the season, and maybe the one where we take the lead in Ligue 1 and never give it back. Our next game is going to be against Lorient. It's going to be in 3 days. It's midweek. So we'll be talking about this relatively soon. But for now, yeah, Brest done and exposed, which is really what we like about Brest. So anyway, if you guys have made it this far, please drop a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit the bell as well to get notified of future videos. And let me know in the comment what you thought of the game, if there's anything that I missed, and how you're feeling about about us being back on top of Ligue 1. And don't forget, in Brittany and exposed, ici c'est Paris!